Hello. Hi, Joel. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, loud and clear.
Good. Thanks. Hello and welcome everyone to our weekly Melapress show. We do these streams every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time or at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We do these discussions, basically talk about everything about WordPress once a week. From time to time, we also have guests. And today I have with me Joel, he's also a technical writer and has a lot of technical experience. You can ask us questions live. We're going to reply to them live as they come along. Also, like if you are watching a recorded version of this episode, you can also send us questions at questions@melapress.com and we will answer them in the next session. Thank you very much for joining. Today we'll be discussing a bit plugins. Most probably all of you know, most of you know, but in case you don't know, plugins are like additional software which you can download or purchase. They are both free and premium editions to enhance, change, or add additional functionality to your WordPress website. You can buy plugins for SEO purposes, security, and there's a whole myriad of plugins. I think, if I'm mistaken, the WordPress.org repository, which is like this number one marketplace for free plugins. I think there are, if I'm not mistaken, 50 or 60,000. By the way, hello everyone. A few people are just sending their greetings. Hello, thanks for joining us. Anyway, so WordPress.org is like the main repository for free plugins. In fact, when you go on your WordPress website and you click on plugins and you search there, when you logged into WordPress, you are actually searching on the repository. I think there are, I'm not sure, do you know, Joe, like 50 or 60, I think, thousands?
It's something like that.
Yes, I mean, there are a few plugins, of course, which need updated, but the bulk of the plugins are all up to date, etc. And then, of course, there are vendors.
There's, 59,000.
59,000. Wow, that's a very big number. Yes. So basically you can find any type of plugin: security, SEO, performance, user management, anything. So you can imagine. In fact, what WordPress, which started like a blogging platform, nowadays is used here by enterprises and bigger businesses as well, like even by smaller businesses, to do almost everything from CRM to e-commerce and stuff like that. Anyway, so I think we of course develop plugins ourselves. We receive a lot of support, not just about our plugins, but we also, like, especially Joel, you write a lot of articles, so you read a lot of other articles, like, and of course, people have everyone like has questions about plugins, but there are maybe, I don't know, like a number of questions that are typically asked. Maybe we can start, like, in your opinion, Joel, like, which is the most common question that you see asked about plugins, for example?
So from what I've seen, I think one of the biggest questions people ask is, how many plugins can I install? That's usually very one of the top questions. Some people think there's a hard kind of limit to how many plugins you can install, whereas it really depends on a number of other things that I'm sure we will be discussing.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, as such, in WordPress, there is no hard limit. Let's start from there. There is definitely no hard limit. I think most people have concern, like, of course, the more plugins you have. I think the biggest concerns are, I would say, security, of course, maintenance, and performance, right?
Exactly.
Yes. It's a good question. I don't think there is no limit. I think, first of all, you need to install plugins that you need. In fact, I think maybe there are less and less nowadays, but I remember, like, over time there used to be these articles like the top 10 must-have plugins, for example, on your website. And like in this list, you might see, I don't know, like an e-commerce solution like WooCommerce or Easy Digital Download. Now, if you have an e-commerce solution, then of course WooCommerce or Easy Digital Download is a must-have. But if you have a membership website or maybe, I don't know, a hobby website, and you're not selling anything online, then of course you don't need these type of plugins. So I think the first, I think maybe the first question should be like, if you're looking for plugins, like, what is your aim? Like, what do you want to do with the website, right? I mean, like, how?
Yes. So that is basically half of the story, and the other half is server specifications and what it can support. Because if you're on a shared hosting and you have an e-commerce site, you can't install WooCommerce and the firewall and everything because it's going to slow down the server, which means your website is going to exhibit very poor performance. So yes, definitely you need to see uh, what you want your website to achieve, to do, and what kind of plugins your server can support.
Exactly. And I think especially if you are new to plugins, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can get a bit overwhelmed by reading some of these articles, like, like these must-have plugins. So I think maybe, yeah, as we were saying, like, look at the scope of your website. What do you want to build? Like, is it an e-commerce solution? Is it just a hobby website? Is it a membership website? And then based on that, okay, let's say it's an e-commerce website. See what you want to achieve, and then look for an e-commerce plugin. Look for, of course, I mean, there are, in all fairness, there are a number of plugins which almost every website needs. You have the SEO plugins, of course, because you need your website to rank, right? I mean, that's how your website
Yep.
Can be found online. Security plugins, of course, like there are different levels of security, and it really depends on how many users you have, and of course, what type of website. But I think basic security, like 2FA and stuff like that, especially as soon as you have more than one user, even one user, quite frankly. But yeah, like if you have
Exactly.
multiple users, it's good practice. Performance plugins, I think there are like performance. It depends, but you can either, I think when it comes to performance, it's a question of either having on the website kind of thing, like a plugin installed, but then of course there are other solutions like CDNs and stuff. So yeah. By the way, we got the first question, like what kind of hosting do you need for something like WooCommerce? Then okay, we can dive a bit deeper in this later on, but basically, yeah, like I think if we had to look at the different levels of hosting, what they're shared, of course.
Yeah.
Then you have managed hosting kind of thing, and dedicated server. I mean, you can split all of those or even more, but those are the big three, right? I think what's
Exactly.
important,
And
yeah,
how much the amount of hard disk space you have, the bandwidth and RAM, like all different hosting providers offer different kinds of packages.
exactly. So I think it's more a question like, yeah, like definitely shared. I would say if you look at these three: shared hosting, managed hosting, and
Dedicated.
dedicated server. Shared hosting is kind of like the beginner entry level, like for low traffic, low resources website. Then of course managed hosting, it varies a lot. And yeah, like for WooCommerce, definitely like not just WooCommerce, like e-commerce in general, because of the number of plugins and tools and functionality you will be having on the website. I think you need definitely don't go for the low end. I think you definitely need like something like medium level package, and then of course you see like if it still affects your performance, because even like with e-commerce store, like it really depends. Like you can have just one plugin for your e-commerce, but if you want to add things, because the default WooCommerce or easy digital download, it's like a basic framework for an e-commerce solution, but then of course you can add plugins, I don't know, for auto follow-ups or for dunning or for, I don't know, to send. You can, if you, I don't know, for example, if you want to build a newsletter with your e-commerce solution, will you host it on your website or will you host it on a third party? So there are a lot of questions. So I think what matters is, I would say, always go for something that it's a bit more than what you actually need, because the last thing you need, especially if you have a bit of peak traffic, is for your website to slow down. So definitely I would always be a bit more, buy something a bit bigger than what you need. And then of course, but managed hosting is a wide variety. But then of course there are dedicated servers, which is basically managed hosting is where you have kind of like an image of WordPress and you use it kind of thing and manage it. Dedicated hosting is you're getting the server and you have to install WordPress yourself, and stuff, which is then of course like the sky's the limit. But yeah, like it really depends. But definitely shared hosting and lowest tiers of hosting are definitely not the best solution for e-commerce. Those are more for not necessarily static, but yeah, basic websites with basic forms and stuff.
Like if it's a personal kind of blog or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. Or like we've seen a lot, like some clubs, basically. I don't
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
runners clubs or stuff like that. Yes. So yeah, yeah, I think, and then of course, going back to the question, like how many plugins should you have? There's no hard limit. It just depends on what you want to achieve on your website. It's what's important, especially if you have concerns about performance. I think it's very important to um, whatever whatever functionality you're adding to your website is going to need certain resources to run, of course. The difference, but of course, let's say you need an activity log plugin. The difference between, like, there are 5, 6, 7 activity log plugins. Regardless which the one you use, there will definitely, and it depends, of course, on how busy your website is. There will always, every plugin you need, not just activity log, any type of plugin will need resources. Then, of course, it depends which one to choose from those 7, for example, is which one is the most kind of efficiently written or stuff like that. And of course, it's not always the case, but in most cases, if the plugin has been available for quite long, then most probably, like, especially if it's been available for long, they have a large user base, then of course, it means, hopefully it's been optimized and has been running, like optimized for better performance. Is that right, Joel?
Yes, yes. As you were saying, like if a plugin has been around for some time, over time it has undergone certain improvements with regards to performance, security, and so forth. So it's always a better bet, so to speak. I would also do some testing. So before you commit to any one plugin, do some tests. So even if using your example, if you're looking for an activity log plugin, install different ones and see which one best serve your needs and requirements. Check functionality, whether the free version is enough or you might need to upgrade to a premium edition. Like you need to test these things. And and going back to performance, so do install the plugins that you need. Do not install plugins that you need, and test. And then if you see like the website is slowing down, then you might need to consider upgrading to a higher tier hosting
Hosting.
package.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so that's like, okay, so as such, there is, like, to recap, there is no limit to how many plugins you can install. It really depends on what functionality you need on your website, which I think that brings us to another question or two, no? Because, like, I think what are the another common question related to kind of like how many plugins, like, is it?
Yeah,
Can,
then another concern people have is security.
yeah, okay, yeah. So, like, it's roughly, I think security, I think in terms of security, I mean, like, of course, because there's like, the more functionality you have, of course, it means like large the bigger the surface area is, your attack surface area, basically. So of course, the more lines of code, the more functionality, so the more attack surface area. With security, what really matters is that, I mean, first of all, there is no 100% secure software. Your website, all the plugins, the operating system we're running right now, the mobile phones, etc. So the question is, like, when someone will find issues. So what's important if you are working with a plugin is if it had security issues or if none were reported in the past. What's really important is, like, when security issues are reported, is this plugin updated on time? Does the vendor release updates, security patches on time or not, basically? Or if because there have been cases in the past where a plugin, for example, was abandoned. So in this case, it's like, if someone reports a security issue, as long as the vendor releases a security patch within the stipulated time and the plugin is kept up to date, it's fine. So I think that's the biggest concern. Like, as long as the plugin is maintained, I think you can also look at the plugin's history and changelog, and you can see roughly how often it's updated. You can also look at it the other way around, because it's the same with WordPress. I remember in the early days of WordPress, 10, 12 years ago, WordPress was seen as a very insecure platform. And nowadays it's very secure. But it was insecure back then because a lot of people were finding a lot of security issues. So the more security issues people are reporting and the more security issues that are fixed, you can also look at it like, whoa, so this software is becoming more robust, basically, because whatever security issues there where they are being covered, they are being discovered by people, and they are being patched, right, Joel? Like you can look at it.
Yes, yes. So as you said, definitely no software is 100% secure. That just does not exist. So it's a matter of when security issues are found, how the developer responds to them.
Exactly.
So if they recognize there's an issue, maybe release a press release or a blog post, how fast they are able to issue a patch, how responsive they are. You need to consider all of these things. Of course, just like earlier we discussed that a plugin that has been around for a long time is probably going to offer better performance. And this is the same for security. So as you said, when WordPress first started, it wasn't as secure as it is today, but over time it improves as the developer receives more feedback and they gain more experience in the plugin, so on and so forth. So that counts as well.
Yeah.
The only exception there is are null plugins.
Yeah, but that's yeah, it's a difference. Before we jump to another plugins, I think one thing it's important to mention is like, which I've seen from our own plugins, also like all the plugins online, like the more popular and the more widely used a plugin is, the more the chances of having vulnerabilities. Not because it's less secure, just because, of course, it has. First of all, we're talking about open source, so people can see the source and it's easier to test. But it has more eyes on it. So the more it's being run, the more it's being run on websites, there are more eyes on this plugin. Basically, it's being audited by many more people. So of course, the chances of finding security issues is much higher, which is good as well. Because in
Which
our
is a good
fairness,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, like if there are security issues in our software, and there is definitely, like like in any other software, I want to get to know about them as soon as possible, because the sooner we know about them, the sooner we can fix them, and the more stable and the more secure software is, quite frankly. Now, jumping to null plugins, yeah, for those who don't know, so basically, as I explained in the beginning, there are like free plugins, and many vendors nowadays have the free plugins and they have the premium plugin, which basically is typically it includes additional functionality to the free edition of the plugin. So you have to pay to buy these plugins. Now, plugins are basically like correct software. What we used to call correct software is like basically, for example, someone buys the plugin, or someone just like bypasses the licensing mechanism of the plugin and puts it available for free on the internet. Now, what's the problem with these? You're not guaranteed certain quality. You're not guaranteed that there is no malware. It's not distributing anything. You're not guaranteed like also in most cases you don't get support and stuff like that. So I think that's it, right, Joel? Especially when it comes to security concerns.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, you are not guaranteed any updates. So even if an issue is discovered, there's no sort of guarantee that whoever sold you the plugin is going to offer you any updates
Or support you.
or support you exactly. So if there's an issue, basically you're on your own, which can make it a bit of a problem if you encounter an issue. And then you're on your own, and especially if it's a security kind of plugin or a plugin that your website depends on, then it can become a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And as we said, yeah, like as a vendor, like I look at ourselves, like okay, we're going to tell you, listen, this is what's in our plugin, etc. It's functionality, and we are held responsible for whatever there is. But if you buy or download null plugins, yeah, like you have no guarantee or anything that there's no additional software running with it. And there have been cases in the past where yeah, null plugins included some sort of malware, backdoors, and any other type of sort of malware or stuff like that, malicious
Exactly.
software. Okay, so yeah, that covers how many plugins. There is no limit as such. It really depends on what you need. Avoids null plugins, free or paid. Honestly, I think it doesn't make a difference. It really depends on the features you need. Like if the free edition is good enough, yeah, you don't have to buy the premium. If you, of course, if you need additional features that are available in the premium, then of course you have to go for the premium. As a vendor, of course, we have certain bias, as in like, of course, like in general, like the more, of course, we sell of the premium, the more we can invest in the free plugin as well. So of course, like if there is no money coming in, of course the free plugin won't be maintained. So there is a whole business model behind that. Anything else, Joel? So we had, how many plugins, paid versus null or free? What are like other common questions or concerns we see from users?
I think another question, maybe not as popular as the first two, is some people asking whether it might be worth for them to basically develop their own plugin.
Okay.
So if they need premium features and perhaps for one reason or another they think it's a bit on the expensive side, should they develop their own plugin instead?
Yeah, it's I think in general, based on my feel, like I think I've been working in the software industry for 20 years. I think I've done the mistake like many others. Like sometimes you like, not just with WordPress, with anything, like, oh, we can write this ourselves, especially if we have a team of developers in house. But usually you quickly realize like, like this is not what we specialize in, and there's a difference. Like I think it really depends. Like if you want a small something which is very small, custom specific to your website, some custom functionality, then maybe you can. Again, it depends. Like in most cases, if it's just a few lines of code, maybe it should be in your site plugin. By the way, site plugin is basically on every website you might need sometimes to add 1-2 lines of code, customization, etc. Not plugins, just a few lines of code. So you can, what we call a site plugin, you can create a plugin which is specifically just to your site, where you add these kind of like small snippets of codes basically. So yeah, like I think it really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, like if you're looking for something very small, very specific, it's relatively easy to write something for yourself. However, if you're looking to write like extensive functionality, you have to, especially if you're saying, Joe, if you're looking at from the price point of view, you have to look at it from a different angle. Like typically, I don't know roughly, but all the plugins, a single site license plugins usually vary between what, $49 up to $199 roughly on average. Those are the average prices. Like if you think, I don't know, like let's say 2FA, for example, because we've developed 2FA plugin ourselves and we know what it takes. If you think you are with your in-house developers, you can develop a 2FA solution for that, like I don't know, like $79-$99. Then I would say go for it. But it's very difficult. Keep in mind as well, like especially if you are developing core functionality on the website, like 2FA, activities, or even like e-commerce or SEO. As your website grows, as it evolves, you're going to add more plugins, you're going to add more functionality, other plugins. Every so often, there are WordPress updates, other plugins updates. So you need to make sure that your plugin is also compatible, is working well with all these updates. So it's not just about writing the plugin for your website and making sure that it works now at the current state of your website, but you need to maintain it as your website grows, changes, and evolves, and other plugins change, right, Joel?
Exactly.
I think
So
that's one angle to look at it. I think there are more angles, right? You can tell us.
yeah. So as you said, first of all, it's going to be next to impossible for anyone to build a plugin from scratch on their own for the same price as they would have paid to purchase the plugin.
Yeah,
And second of all, even once the plugin is done, you need to maintain it. So you need to test it first of all, make sure that from a performance point of view, it's performing as it should. From a security point of view, there are no security holes. As you update WordPress and the rest of the plugins and the theme, you need to retest it. And if some fault develops, you need to fix it, and it goes on and on and on. And if it's not your core area of expertise, it's going to be very difficult for you to continue to first of all develop and continue and maintain this plugin.
exactly. Like I look at our research, we develop mostly security and user management plugins. When we started selling our plugins, the last thing I want to do is develop an e-commerce plugin that sells software. We might as well use a service or another plugin and pay for it than trying to develop your own system, because you'd be surprised, especially once you start I remember a software company we used to work for, we developed our own sort of like checkout slash CRM system and stuff like that, like relations, customer relation manager and licensing system and everything. Like within a year, we're like, whoa, like this is like, because you create a list of specifications. I remember a developer full time for this, so he developed it. But yeah, like then it starts, like, oh, there's this customer which needs this exception. There's this customer which needs a manual renewal. There's this who needs upgrade from here to here, and you start adding functionality. All of a sudden, you realize, like, whoa, maybe it would have been much better, because you will end up with a person full time maintaining that plugin, that functionality on your website. So most probably,
For
most
sure.
cases, yeah, it's not always. I mean, like it depends, but like as I said, like if it's some small custom custom functionality, for I don't know, for example, you have a footer on your website and you'd like to add, I don't know, like a bar on top of this footer. That's something very custom and very specific. So most probably this one doesn't need, like a lot of development and can be done. If you are a developer or if you have a development team, it's worth doing. But if you look at our plugins like 2FA or ActivityLog, it's been around, the WP ActivityLog plugin, for 12 years, and we're still up to this day. Like, of course, we test the plugin today we've just done a release. Whenever we do release, the last few days is just like full-on testing, backend for developers, changing things, etc. And even then, when you do this, of course, there will always be customers who might encounter an upgrade problem or something like that, or like someone said, oh, maybe this should be. So, yeah, like it takes a lot of time. So maintaining it yourself is a totally different ballgame. We got another question. Thanks, LJ. How much time do you guys spend maintaining your plugins? Well, we have a team of full-time developers. It's constant. It's constant. And if you look at releases, in between releases, we're always sending a patch to this customer, and then of course after a certain number of patches or a certain number of weeks or months, we wrap up everything, include new features, improvements, and then release an update. But yeah, it can be. It can be a constant. It is actually a constant job, basically. You're all the time improving. Because keep in mind, apart from adding new functionality, apart from improving what you already have in terms of features, as we were saying in the beginning, you also need to make sure that, for example, wherever we see our plugins, roughly there will always be an SEO plugin, some e-commerce plugin, etc. So we need to make sure that whenever these plugins are updated, our plugin is also compatible with the latest version of these plugins, with the latest functionality, So yeah, it's a constant thing. So yeah, as I said, there's difference between adding a simple banner, for example, at the bottom of your website. That most probably is much easier to do it yourself rather than hassling if you're a developer. But developing your own plugin is like if you're looking for, I don't know, like 2FA solution, e-commerce, SEO solution, it's definitely much more. By the way, this brings us to a question, because it's something you're very interested in as well, Joel. Like nowadays, like people like AI is now like the talk of the town. Basically, everyone talks about AI. Last time I was doing some kind of like test with AI. It's impressive, honestly. It's impressive how much you can do with an AI. You can easily spin up a plugin. But last time I saw an interesting post on LinkedIn which spoke about, because nowadays, especially with people, just use AI, we'll write our own plugin. The problem with AI, I said, it can give you good solutions. The problem that many people are seeing nowadays, like, okay, you have a plugin running on AI. You have a plugin running on a production website. What happens when there's an issue on the production website? Who is going to debug that plugin, basically, or software? So yeah, use it. I'm not saying don't use AI. I have nothing against AI. Actually, we use it ourselves. There are a lot of benefits to using AI. You can benefit a lot. It can help you speed up some processes. But if you have like something that's, I don't know, that is a core functionality of your website, make sure that at least, even if you use AI, make sure at least you know what's in the code, how it's working and whatnot. Because if something goes wrong, and listen, from time to time, something will always happen. We look at ourselves. Every website, from time to time, we need some update that went wrong. I don't know, you changed some setting that didn't work as it was supposed to work. Yeah, so you need people to troubleshoot and debug that issue. So at least if you are using AI, make sure you can, you can troubleshoot that issue. So okay, so
Exactly.
how many plugins? We address that one. We address security, null-free plugins,
Performance.
performance, developing your own plugin. Again, like if it's a small thing, if you like a few snippets of code, then it's doable. But if it's not, most probably it's much more worth using someone's plugin. Anything else, Joel? You see
Yeah,
like
yeah.
often?
One other, not concern, but more of a question people have is whether it's best to use a number of single function plugins or have an all-in-one and use just one plugin.
That's a good question. What's your take on this one, Joel?
So my take is it depends. So when you have an all-in-one, the main issue is if the plugin has an issue, then all functionality is gone. So if there's a security issue, and it's going to take the developer some time to address, and the security issue is of such concern that you need to temporarily disable the plugin, it means that all of the functionality offered by that plugin is now gone. So on the other hand, having single function plugins, they tend to be more specialized in that area because by definition, typically speaking, all-in-ones are more generic, whereas a single function plugin tends to really focus on the function that it offers. It can be very specialized, and as such, it can offer way more functionality around what it does. Having said that, if you have a small blog website like a running club, as we were saying earlier, then maintaining a number of single function plugins can be maybe too time consuming for you. So uh, basically, regardless of what you do, you're never going to eliminate risk. You can manage risk. And you manage risk, you have to consider how much risk you're willing to take on. So, for example, if you have a small running club website where security isn't such of a concern, so if your website got hacked and it went down, how worried would you be? So, if it's a big issue, then you need to invest a little bit more in security. If it's not such a big issue, then you don't need to invest as much. So obviously there is room for all-in-one plugins. I'm not saying all-in-one plugins are bad. I'm just saying that they're not as specialized as single-function plugins, basically.
Yes, I think, yeah, even if you don't, because you mentioned mostly like security, but even if it's not security, let's say you had a problem with the plugin you are using. I don't know, you changed something, a setting, or you updated and there was a problem and you need support, which is normal nowadays. I mean, like, until you receive a response from the developer, yeah, like if let's say it's crashing your website. Now, if it's a single, like it's a multi all-in-one plugin, and you have to disable it temporarily, keep in mind that you have to disable the plugin temporarily, yeah, and all that functionality is disabled on your website. However, if you have single function, then at least only one particular functionality is not available on the website. Even if you don't look, even it's not just about security, even in terms of maintenance. One thing which I tend to differ from you, like, because you said, like, if you have a running club website and you don't have time to update all the plugins, maybe it's easier to go for all-in-one. My concern is, like, I think especially with it's kind of like the problem with WordPress, as in, like, WordPress is very easy to use, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but and so websites nowadays are kind of like more, it's way easier for everyone to start their own website. However, I think some people underestimate what it takes to maintain a website. You need to realize that, listen, like, you need, with experience, most people learn as after the website is hacked or taken down or whatever, like, listen, yeah, like, if you're going, you need time to maintain your website, either to update the plugins, update the theme, I don't know, or from time to time, it's functionality. It's what it is. So I wouldn't restrict myself on time. I would make sure if I need certain functionality, I add the time. Having said that, I agree with you, Joel. Like, yes, like, I think all-in-one plugins have a place, definitely. But also, like, the single function plugins. And similar to what you said, I always compare it to mobile phones. Is it like on the latest mobile phones, iPhones, Google phones, whatever, the camera is good, but you can never do you don't have all the flexibility and functionality when you compare that camera to an actual DSLR camera. Like it's still good, the mobile phone camera, and for X amount of the public is good enough, X percentage of the public, that is good enough. But if you want to specialize in photography, then it's of course the mobile phone is not enough, does not cut it. And the same, we see it ourselves as well, like certain functionality, certain plugins, like they do. If you look at our plugin, I know certain security plugins have activity lock in them, but also like when their customers ask them like, hi, like we'd like to have more detailed activity locks, they actually send them to us, because for them, like, listen, the focus is like maybe the main selling point of their plugin is something else, or maybe like 3-4 features, and the activity lock is kind of like something they do on the side, which is enough for some users. But if you have like a bigger website, especially if you're an agency, and you want to kind of like keep an eye on what's happening on the websites, we like governments, compliance, and all these things, and of course the basic limited activity lock is not enough, so you need a single scope. So I think, as you said, I think it's very important to point out, similar to how many plugins are too many, like there is no straight answer to this. It's just, it really depends on what you need, on what resources you have, quite frankly, right?
Exactly.
That's what it is, yeah. So I think anything else, Joel, that typically we hear, like?
I think maybe one other thing that's worth talking about is what to look for when choosing a plugin.
Yes, because that of course ties in everything together. Yeah, I think there
Exactly.
a few factors. I think like everything else, because if you have bought software before or anything online, I think the most important is read reviews. Of course, read the reviews about the vendor, about the plugin. I mean, especially with reviews. I mean, it's good to like do your homework. But the reason why I'm saying this, because like even the best brands in the world, you will always find someone who complains. So just because you read one bad review doesn't mean like everyone had that bad experience, So check the reviews. I think the WordPress.org repository is a very good place, because they have reviews, they have ratings, they have like you can see how many active installations there are. So that's already like a good indicator. Like if you see the plugin has enough overall good rating and it's been downloaded. There's a difference between downloading a plugin which has, I don't know, 50 active installations or 200,000 active installations. The one, of course, with 200,000, you know that it is currently being used by hundreds of thousands of websites. So of course, most probably, I'm not saying, of course there will be users who have issues with that plugin, but in general it seems like it's a widely used plugin, so it's a reliable plugin, right? So we have reviews, we have install base, anything else, Joel?
Yes. Also, if you've purchased a plugin from a developer and you trust them, if they've been if you had any questions or concerns and you emailed them and they were quick to answer, so then it might be worth for you to check with that developer if you've developed a relationship with them and you trust them. What else? The frequency of the updates. So
Yes,
if
I think
if the plugin hasn't been updated in a year, forget it. Like every few months, you should be seeing a new update. I believe you can check the update frequency from WordPress.org.
Yes, I mean basically you see the spikes, or most plugins have the changelog and you can see the date. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, WordPress.org, it will show. I think, I'm not sure if the plugin hasn't been updated in 2 or 3 years. Last time we discussed this, I think. It will show you a notification that like this plugin hasn't been updated for the last X years. So
I mean 3 years is a bit much, but
in software, even a year, quite in software, 1 year, like it's a bit of almost an eternity kind of thing.
And if this is more maybe for premium plugins, so if you're considering purchasing a premium plugin, do email the developers, see if they answer you. So try to test the waters, make sure that, listen, if I have a problem, are they going to help me or I'm going to be stuck on my own?
Exactly.
So basically do your research,
Good, good. By the way, yeah, we host the show once a week on every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time and 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So yeah, you can always watch us live. You can send us questions live, or a few people already have sent us some questions. If you are watching a recorded session, uh, you can always send us some questions at melapress.com, and we'll answer them in the next session. And don't forget to like and subscribe. So yeah, I think by the way, because earlier you also mentioned security. Nowadays, especially if you're not kind of like, first of all, of course, make sure when you're choosing the plugin, yeah, as long as the developer, if there were security issues, they were addressed on time, you shouldn't worry much. But there are also like solutions. I think what patch checkers are doing is a very good solution. They have what they call virtual patching. So because it happens, unfortunately, it's not always possible for you to update. If let's say you're using a plugin X, and yeah, a release is available, but for some reason you cannot update right away. I don't know. You need a certain number of weeks. Like there are services like PatchTech which basically kind of like can protect you from these known security issues. This doesn't mean you shouldn't keep your software up to date. It's just more like a solution. So at least you make sure you're always secure, even if for some reason something slipped. But there's some sort of security.
It's a band-aid, not a fix.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, they do much more
But
than
an
that. But yeah,
important
that's
band-aid, yeah.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
the idea.
Yeah. So since we discussed these, like, okay, so how many plugins? As such, there is no limit to how many plugins you can install. Uh, don't use null plugins. Now, should you use free or premium? Doesn't make a difference. It really depends on the features and what you need. Yeah, we already discussed also what to look for when choosing a plugin. We discussed a bit like what's the difference between single function and all-in-one plugins. So I think that's about, and security, we discussed it a bit through the different
Yeah,
topics.
yeah.
I think we can still like, there are some plugins, not necessarily specific plugin names, but I think we can all, like, there are some as a website owner, especially let's look not a single user website kind of thing, small website. Let's look at the typical business, not necessarily e-commerce, but yeah, business website kind of thing. Like, shall we compile a list of the most common plugins? Usually, I'm presuming you need an SEO plugin, obviously, right?
Yeah, as an
Definitely
SEO plugin, it
SEO
definitely
plugin.
will be of help for sure.
Exactly. Definitely need some sort of like firewall. Now, if it's a plugin or a service like PatchTech, but yeah, you can,
Need
yeah,
something.
need something. Performance, CDN.
Recommend it 100%,
Exactly.
even from a security point of view.
Exactly. Authentication, definitely 2FA. I would definitely recommend 2FA, not just because we have it, but I would definitely recommend 2FA. If you want to go a step above that, yeah, like there are plugins also you can like implement some different number of password and login security policies, like user account security management kind of thing. There are a lot of things which you can do. Caching plugin, well, it depends if you're using CDN or not. I think form plugins, I think, yeah, like almost every website has a form nowadays, so that's another plugin. It's a must-have kind of thing on your
Yeah.
website. I think another popular plugin is, it depends, of course, like if you are developing things yourself kind of thing. Advanced custom fields, it's another popular plugin because it allows you to kind of like customize WordPress quite extensively. Anything else, Joel? Plugins?
If you have a large number of users, maybe a role editing plugin.
Yes, role editing. In fact, yeah, activity log as well, of course.
The
Like,
activity log.
activity log, especially if you're looking business, we're talking about not just business, even like government, schools and stuff. We're talking about compliance as well. So activity log is definitely is a must have. Yeah, and the user role definitely, especially if you have multiple users with who have different roles on the website. Yeah, I think, yeah, just for those who don't know, roles basically, yeah, like when you have a website with multiple users, you cannot just give admin access to everyone, right? So ideally, you should have like,
Yeah, as
yeah.
in, for sure, not, you should not. There's something called the principle of least privilege,
Hmm.
which basically tells us that any given user should only have access to do the things they need to do, no more, no less.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is basically going back to risk management, that's what you're doing basically. You are reducing the risk of someone doing something they should not, whether intentionally or not, ultimately.
Right.
And if you have a large number of users and the rows provided by WordPress out of the box are not enough, then by having a editing plugin, you can create custom roles to serve your sort of functions
Yeah,
within
yeah.
your users.
Good. So I think, yeah, that's it. So basically, yeah, like just to recap a bit, how many plugins should you install? It really depends on what you need. Make sure, of course, that you choose the right plugins that fit your requirements, and make sure, of course, you have the server that can support it, because every plugin you're going to install, regardless of how efficient it is going to need a certain number of resources for it to run. Yes, avoid null plugins always. Should you use the free or premium? It really depends on what you need. Should you use a single function plugin or all-in-one plugin? Again, it really depends on your requirements. We also discuss how to choose a plugin, look at reviews, look at what users' experiences online. If you need, yeah, contact the vendor for support. I think that's about it, Joey, right?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to plugins, we can continue talking till tomorrow morning.
Exactly, yeah.
There's always something
Yeah.
to talk about. But as in, I think that what we've spoken about, I think that it covers a good sort of foundation.
Yeah, you have a good foundation and to discuss the basics. Thanks a lot, Joel. Thanks everyone for following.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone who asked the questions as well. We do this session live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time and also at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're watching a recorded edition, please send us your questions at questions@melapress.com and we'll answer them in the next session. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Thanks, Joel. Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye bye.